Hi there. This is David Nevins for Citybiz List, and today we begin a conversation on behalf of an organization called the Bridge Alliance, and we'll be speaking with a number of their members for a series that we would like to call Repairing America's Broken Democracy. And so if you were to go to the Bridge Alliance website, you would see that one of the first lines there is that they exist to try to fix the, and I love the way this is put, to try to fix the dysfunctional and suffocating partisanship, of our current political system. So quite a bit of work ahead of us, I would say. And our guest today is Joan Blades, who has done a number of things. Hopefully you have read her bio before you are watching this video. Joan is an award-winning author. She's the co-founder of a number of organizations, Moms Rising, MoveOn.org, and she's an attorney and a mediator by training, and more recently has founded an organization called Living Room Conversations. And that's her current role, and that's what we'll be speaking to her about today. Thank you for joining us, Joan.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Joan, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and I would say about Living Room Conversations, a great name. And how is it that you hope that Living Room Conversations will make our democracy a more functional and better place?
Living Room Conversations are small, 6-person conversations typically that allow people to really deeply listen to each other about whatever topic they choose. And we have over 100 topic guides. It's a simple process, and we have faith communities and libraries and lots of individuals having these conversations about topics ranging from more curious, less furious, to guns and responsibility, to alone, solitude or isolation, coronavirus conversations. It's an open source project, and I co-founded it with conservative and independent partners back in 2010. So we've been around for a while. And it is Living Room Conversations, but obviously they're happening all over the place. And last year they started happening pretty much by Zoom more than anything else, though we'd been doing video conversations for a number of years already at that point. So it's a wonderful way to connect with people, to get to understand each other better, and to even find common ground in many cases and find things you want to do together. But it builds trust.
So Joan, tell me a little bit more about how it works, how one participates. It seems like though you founded it 10 years ago, it seems like something essentially built for pandemic times, particularly with the convenience of Zoom and other technology.
Well, the original model was 2 friends with different viewpoints, each to invite 2 friends for a conversation about a given topic. And original topics were energy and immigration. And that conversation has been rewritten probably 3 or 4 times since we first got it, because, well, things keep changing and we need to always be improving. That's the nature of open source. It has turned out that there are a lot of communities that want to improve their relationships. They see that relationships have gotten frayed in the last years. And this has been a way for them to create a space for people to connect and listen. And I think the most important aspect of the conversations is they remind people how powerful it is to just hear each other's stories, and that we don't have to be agreed on everything to really care about each other. That's at the core of it.
So you speak to something that we, I think, very badly need today. I know that in, my own home, when we have, when we're with guests or socially distanced outside at restaurants, whatever the case may be, if they are of the same political ilk, we love to have living room conversations. But if they are of a different political ilk, it seems like having what I'll call living room conversations is increasingly difficult today, trying to get people to listen to one another and understand a different perspective. So how do you do it?
We have a very simple set of conversation agreements that everybody reads at the beginning, and people are good at this. It's basically what you learned in kindergarten. Be respectful, take turns, be curious, own your part of the conversation. And people know how to do this. People also know, when you're inviting people to join you, my co-host will be someone that is curious about a topic. I've had a bunch of conversations about environmental issues. And I started this because climate change was my top issue. And I had been able to have some really good conversations across differences in 2005, 2006. By 2008 or 2009, that was less possible. And being able to really hear where people with different viewpoints are coming from makes all the difference in the world. And once you've got that and you have an appreciation for each other, then you look to find ways to meet each other's core needs. And so if it's about, the environment or the economy or how we are running our cities, once we have that connection, we have a much better chance of doing a good job at that. We need everybody's best ideas in the room.
So let's get a little more specific, if you don't mind. Like, how many conversations are taking place that your organization has established or promoted? I'm not sure what the right term is. And how does one go about it? Is it a matter? So we're essentially with Zoom. If I wanted to have a conversation on climate change with people who might disagree, and kind of the other side of climate change is, well, job loss and what does it do to the economy, and so how does one go about it to generate this discussion of different ideas?
One of the wonderful things about this is I've learned a great deal over the last 10 or so years. If you want to have a conversation with people that don't believe in climate change, you need to have a conversation about energy, because they're not coming to a conversation about climate change. But it is a wonderful way to start hearing each other's viewpoints. And that conversation has actually progressed a great deal in the last 10 years as things have changed. The invitation to one other person to co-host, and then we each choose 2 guests to join us. There are faith communities that decide they want to do it together. There's a wonderful evangelical community in Boise, Idaho, that started doing them monthly. And they went for the toughest issues. They, had the race conversation. They had the abortion conversation. And this was a community for whom that was a very contentious issue. But it is a listening practice. It's not about persuasion. And of course, the most perverse thing about that is the best way to have anyone change their mind is not to try to persuade them, but to really listen to them so that they just might be curious about how you're seeing things differently.
Yeah, I'm 65 years old. I'm just learning that now, that you sometimes can just present topics to people without trying to persuade them, and oftentimes that works just as well. Joan, when most of the life of your organization living room conversations was pre-pandemic. So were these conversations taking place literally in living rooms across the country?
Yes, they're taking place in living rooms and bookstores and, outside, wherever people wanted to get together and talk. And, one of the interesting things is because it's open source, we know about thousands of conversations, but there could well be tens of thousands. Someone from Brazil talked to me in December and told me there'd been over 800 living room conversations in Brazil. And it was like, oh, that's nice. But, I'm focused on the US because you need to have cultural competence to be designing the conversations. Helping people move from in-person to online, that's taken some adaptation from everybody. There are a lot of people that like being in person, and there's another group of people that really prefer the video conversation. And it does allow us to get communities that are very, very apart geographically to connect with each other. We've had school classrooms talking, from rural Utah to New York, and they had wonderful conversations. And we have intergenerational conversations. So it's a major opportunity to connect people. Plus, we have some new technology called Junto that has the conversation guides embedded in it. And that's proving to be a very good way to let people have the living room conversations, because previously, people would download the guide and print it out and have it in front of them. And now it's just right there, right in front of them. And that helps a lot too.
And that reminds them to, as you said, remain civil and well-behaved and all those things, just in case they forget.
Yes. I think the beauty of the small group is we create a container. When you have just two people, it's having a third side is actually very beneficial to having a very respectful and actually a deep conversation. People talk about their personal relationship with whatever the topic is. The guns and responsibility conversation. It allows people to really hear why guns are so important to people, how they grew up with them and it was their way of being with their father or whatever, and the traumas of some other people. And, people change, but they change in more subtle ways and they gain nuance through having these conversations.
I'd love to hear an example of maybe you were a participant in one of these living room conversations where it was particularly enlightening to people, that they got to understand one another's position a little more respectfully and clearly. Do you have such an example?
There are a lot of examples. Picking one, probably the most impactful one for me was a conversation I had with the co-founder of Tea Party Patriots in 2013, where he had two of his friends and I had two of mine. It was an extremely diverse group. And we discovered it was a crony capitalism conversation. And we discovered we were in complete agreement about key aspects of criminal justice reform. Too many people in prison, war on drugs not a success, got to use evidence-based practices. And it allowed us and me to work in that area with a foundation that, wow, we really do agree here. It is time for us to make some substantial changes. And that was enlightening. I had not realized how much agreement there was. And learning about what the obstacles are even after you agree is pretty interesting too.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts? I don't know if you have any thoughts on how we essentially got to where we are. I was speaking with someone just yesterday, and they talked about the world of cable television, which, when we were young, there were 3 or 4 channels, and each channel, in order to get an audience, had to be pretty centrist, right? And then it had to, give you close to the whole story. And now that we have hundreds of cable channels, and one can be successful just by attracting, 2% of the audience, that allows us to learn, just from habitually watching one or another, as opposed to really being able. It seems so odd to me because of, we live in this world of technology, that instead of learning more about what people are thinking, we tend to be learning less and just going back and back and back to the places that, tend to agree with our positions. Is that essentially what living room conversations is all about fixing?
It is attempting to contribute to fixing that. There's a documentary recently out called The Social Dilemma that makes the point very strongly that, the artificial intelligence only cares about getting our eyeballs. And that means that fear, anxiety, and anger are the stories they keep on putting in front of people. And then we also have seen so much bad behavior around political issues that we don't talk to people that don't agree with us. And that causes us to get deeper into our own view of the world as well. So there's a lot of factors that are pushing us to be further and further divided. And we have to make an intentional decision that we're not going to go with that we're going to, there's all sides, which is the news from across the political spectrum. You read that and you go, oh, that's why people see things so differently.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start making the choices to understand each other and to care about each other. And I can't say strongly enough how that caring about each other makes all the difference in the world.
Well put. So as we close, Joan, how does one join get involved with your organization? How does one participate in a living room conversation, or host one, or see what topics are out there for participation?
Well, our website, livingroomconversations.org, has an opportunity to sign up. So you get a weekly note telling you what the opportunities are that week. And there's also the place where you can sign up to watch a conversation, to be part of a conversation, or if you feel confident, you can just go ahead and co-host a conversation, because a lot of people can. These conversations can be very much about just what you're focused on right now. We have a whole set of COVID conversations, loss in the time of COVID, or parenting in the time of COVID. Mm. We even have a conversation for crafters. So the opportunity to connect with people and family and friends, if you have someone that is feeling isolated, it's a way to bring them in and have a really deeper kind of conversation that has a opportunity to meet others. I have one mom that talks about having gotten to know her nephews in a way she never would have before. At the same time, she was inviting her mom, who's going, when can we have another? So it's kind of lovely. It's a way we can take care of each other and become more aware of the opportunities to improve the situation we got.
Well, I want to thank you, Joan, for joining us. While it's at the same time so simple that all it takes is a little bit of conversation. You and your organization, I know, have hosted thousands of these conversations, and I don't think the one thing I would say that people do agree on is that if we were to talk to one another a little bit more, listen to one another a little bit more, that we would have a better society and a healthier democracy, and we would go a long way toward repairing, as I mentioned in the beginning, America's potentially broken democracy. So, Joan, thank you for joining us. Let me remind everybody to visit Living Room Conversations if it's of interest to you. And so on behalf of the Bridge Alliance, of which Living Room Conversations is a member, and on behalf of Citybiz List, this is David Nevins, and thank you for watching. And Joan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.